Brother Les with another gardening video. This time I want to talk with you about improving your soil texture, your drainage, and fertility. And I'm just going to grab a little hand tool here. I'm going to show you what our soil looked like before we started. So just follow me over here as I show you an example of the poor quality soil we had. So I'm just going to dig up a little bit. Oh boy, is this hard. Wow, whoo, goodness. Oh man. Okay, I'm just going to get a little bit of this in my hand here. And let's walk back over where I've got some water, and I'll just do a little test with it to show you how you can test your soil. Now, my gardening videos are specifically targeting beginning gardeners through maybe beginning intermediate. There are many people that are experts who know quite a bit more, but I have been gardening for a good 20 years or so, and I won't use a lot of technical terms. Sometimes I don't remember them, but I think that some of these tips will be helpful to you. So let's just take a little bit of water here and get this wet. I don't need all this, so just got a little bit in my hands here, and I'm going to do the roll test. Now first, I hope you noticed how light colored that soil was. Did you notice that? Well, now we're going to find out how much clay it has in it. Now I'm not going to say necessarily a percentage, but is your soil does it have too much clay? Well, here we go. I actually put too much water on it first, but you can see it's really sticking together. Oh boy, look at that. Wow. In fact, my hands weren't so wet I could do it better, but if you can roll it out and make like a little worm out of it, which I definitely can with this, you have way too much clay. Well, what does that mean related to soil drainage? That means that the pore size between the particles of clay is so tight that your soil's not going to drain very well. It may be able to hold on the nutrients, but you can see that soil didn't have very many nutrients in it at all, did it? Because it was so light colored. So see that? If you test your soil and it looks like that, that's way too much clay. And so we're going to talk about how to improve your soil if you have that problem where maybe it rains and the water just sits right on top of the soil too long. Here's another problem I have. I'm going to correct a mistake I made from last month's video. You might recall in March and later in April we made 2 lasagna gardens. They're right down here. And the more I thought about it, I thought, I'm just peeling this back, I ended up with bags of inexpensive topsoil. But let's just kind of compare the drainage on that. Yeah, way too fast. Did you see that? Just went down super fast. So it's not going to hold on to it. Why? Well, it turned out that cheapy gardening soil from Home Depot had too much sand in it. And so it's going to drain too quick. And guess what? That means that it's not going to hold on the nutrients. That means the plants will just dry out. And so what did I do? I came back, and I've got some old hay here, which sometimes you can just go to a gardening or a feed store and ask, hey, do you have any old hay that you can't sell, that you could get for free? We've done that before. Sometimes we buy it, but you need to ask. I want to make sure this wasn't sprayed with, Roundup or some pesticide, right? Because you don't want killing your garden plants. So we just put down, this is an excellent way to hold on to the moisture and keep your garden covered. And so we're in the hot time of the summer now, getting into high 80s, 90s. So we put on a 2 to 4 inch layer, and you can see, goodness, look how much we put on around the corn there. Last time we made the video, this corn hadn't even come up at all, I don't think. And look how tall it is in just 1 month. Maybe it just started. So there's a lot of things you can do to improve your soil drainage? And then what about the soil texture? Like what if you started with clay soil and you wanted to improve it? It had too much clay. Obviously could mix in a lot some sand, but that doesn't have any nutrients. Well, you can start composting, which I'll do a whole video on that. Now this is a new compost material. I have chickens going through it. This is about 1 month old. So I could put it on the garden. I'd like it to be broken down more. And by the end of the summer, when I'm ready to plant my fall crops, it's going to be broken down real well. There'll probably be a whole bunch of earthworms in there. Another thing you might be able to get for free or inexpensively, if you had too much clay and you wanted to kind of break apart, increase the pore space, would be just tree mulch. We got a huge load of this for free. They were just looking for a place to dump it, and we've been putting it and walking on it, but I have actually put it on my garden before, and one man who was an arborist out in, I believe he had moved to Washington State, turned out the soil, it was just too hard and dry even there, and so he just had load after load after load of tree mulch delivered. He'd have it about this deep, he'd plant right into it. His gardening videos were called Eden Garden, or Back to Eden Garden, or something like that, and he really got excellent results. Well, what about improving the fertility of your soil? Now, obviously, you know, looking at that clay, that's not too fertile, is it? You might be able to grow grass on it, but that's about it. You're not going to grow a good garden in the hard clay. But on the other hand, with what I had here, remember I ended up with just this. Well, that composted, the topsoil there, that's not going to be very fertile either. Now you can get, if I had to do this over again, I'd end up with composted cow manure bags, which you can get inexpensively, $2.29 or something like that at Home Depot. And that may hold on to the moisture a little bit better and have some nutrients as well. And so, but also, if you have animals, then this is right from the rabbits. These little pellets are rabbit pellets. And of course we have chickens back here. They're on the compost pile. I don't know if you can see them, but you can use chicken droppings, but they're awfully strong. They could burn your plants, so you better compost them. But guess what? With the rabbit pellets, I can just shake it all around. I don't want to put it on too thick, any fertilizer I put on, but I can just shake it around. And you might even have friends that have rabbits. You can get a whole bag from them for free. Well, if you wanted to spend a little bit of money, there's things that you could get. This one here, I've already opened it, so I have to kind of roll it up here. But this is called Coop Poop. And yes, it is made from the chicken droppings, dried out, and other things mixed in, calcium and so on. It's actually a fairly low level fertilizer, slow release. It's organic. It's not cheap though. This is a 40-pound bag. I've used about half of it for, now it's $20. But if you want to buy something, you could, but you probably might be able to find someone or know someone who has horses. We've got neighbors 2 or 3 houses over with horses. I could use horse manure if I needed to, or cow manure from people I know. Obviously you want it to be well composted. So these are just a few tips. Now I wanted to mention the benefits of above ground gardening. And so this one, even though my regular soil, as you saw, was mainly clay, I don't have to worry about that. And if it has other problems with it, if I do above ground gardening and I'm composting a lot, now I could spend some money. Mel Bartholomew, in his book called Square Foot Gardening, finally came up with his own mix called Mel's Mix. And it was 1/3 for making his own garden soil, really high quality, but it was expensive. 1/3 compost from many sources. You could make that yourself, but 1/3 vermiculite, a big bag of that, and 1/3 peat moss, a big bag of that. And we have done that before, and that the peat moss and vermiculite holds on to the moisture and it really improves the soil texture. But that was expensive. So I'm trying to focus on things you can do for free or almost free. But if you did want to get vermiculite or peat moss from your gardening store, that would certainly help quite a bit as well. Well, we're going to end up in the front garden because I want to show you the end product of a good lasagna garden. One of our front gardens, and it's a very good site because it gets an optimal amount of sun exposure, and later on I may make a video about what we did to winterize it. But what I wanted to show you is this was a lasagna garden, 80 feet long by 3.5 or so feet wide. We started it maybe 8 years ago. We used the lasagna gardening method, and I mentioned this maybe a month or two ago, but I wanted to actually show you a little bit better the soil. So once again, you can see real thick hay I've put down, and yes, I am having to water some right now. But see how dark that soil is? That shows you this is very good soil, a lot of organic matter, which the clay wouldn't have. And there's a lot of roots in here I'm working with, but this is really good soil. It's made very good soil over time, and I even put tree mulch in here one year, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But a lot of times when I move the hay and the top layer out of the way, I'll see a lot of earthworms. I didn't see that this time, but I guess there's a few in there. But you can see it does make very good soil. It's broken down now. At times the particle size was probably too big, it was draining too fast, but now it's broken down a little bit more. It seems, I think it's just right. It's holding on to the moisture, but we've got the hay on it to hold moisture in even better now that it's quite hot. All right, I hope this was helpful to you. Have a good afternoon.